And when you're ready.
21st of July. The third night we were to pass through the western end of the country of Balquhidder. It came clear and cold, with a touch in the air like frost, and a northerly wind that blew the clouds away and made the stars bright. The streams were full, of course, and still made a great noise among the hills. But I observed that Alan thought no more upon the Kelpie, and was in high good spirits. As for me, the change of weather came too late. I'd lain in the mire so long that, as the Bible has it, my very clothes abhorred me. I was dead weary, deadly sick, and full of pains and shiverings. The chill of the wind went through me, and the sound of it confused my ears. In this poor state I had to bear from my companion something in the nature of a persecution. He spoke a good deal, and never without a taunt. "Whig" was the best name he had to give me. "Here," he would say, "here's a dub for you to jump, my Wiggy. I ken you're a fine jumper," and so on, all the time with a gibbling voice and face. I knew it was my own doing, and no one else's, but I was too miserable to repent. I felt I could drag myself but little farther. Pretty soon I must lie down and die on these wet mountains like a sheep or a fox, and my bones must whiten there like the bones of a beast. My head was light, perhaps, but I began to love the prospect. I began to glory in the thought of such a death, alone in the desert, with the wild eagles besieging my last moments. Alan would repent then, I thought. He would remember, when I was dead, how much he owed me, and the remembrance would be torture. So I went like a sick, silly and bad-hearted schoolboy, feeding my anger against a fellow man, when I would have been better on my knees, crying on God for mercy. All the while I was growing worse and worse. Once I had fallen, my legs simply doubling under me, and this had struck Alan for the moment. But I was afoot so briskly, and set off again with such a natural manner, that he soon forgot the incident. Flushes of heat went over me, and then spasms of shuddering. The stitch in my side was hardly bearable. At last I began to feel that I could trail myself no further, and with that there came on me all at once the wish to have it out with Alan, let my anger blaze, and be done with my life in a more sudden manner. He'd just called me Whig. I stopped. "Mr. Stewart," said I, in a voice that quivered like a fiddle string, "you are older than I am, and should know your manners. Do you think it either very wise or very witty to cast my politics in my teeth?" I thought where folk differed, it was the part of a gentleman to differ civilly, and if I did not, I may tell you I could find a better taunt than some of yours. Alan had stopped opposite to me, his hat cocked, his hands in his breeches pockets, his head a little on one side. "It's time these manners ceased," I continued, "and I mean you shall henceforth speak civilly of my king and my good friends the Campbells." "I'm a Stewart," began Alan. "Oh," says I ken you bear a king's name, but you are to remember, since I have been in the Highlands, I have seen a good many of those that bear it, and the best I can say of them is this, that they would be none the worse of washing." "Do you know that you insult me?" said Alan, very low. "I'm sorry for that," said I, "for I am not done, and if you distaste the sermon, I doubt the perlique will please you as little. You've been chased in the field by the grown men of my party. It seems a poor kind of pleasure to outface a boy. Both the Campbells and the Whigs have beaten you. You have run before them like a hare. It behoves you to speak of them as of your betters." Alan stood quite still, the tails of his great coat clapping behind him in the wind. "This is a pity," he said at last. "There are things said that cannot be passed over." "I never asked you to," said I. "I'm as ready as yourself." "Ready?" said he. "Ready," I repeated. "I'm no blower and boaster like some that I could name. Come on!" And drawing my sword, I fell on guard as Alan himself had taught me. "David," he cried, "are you daft? I canna draw upon you, David. It's fair murder." "That was your lookout when you insulted me," said I. "It's the truth," cried Alan, and he stood for a moment wringing his mouth in his hand like a man in sore perplexity. "It's the bare truth," he said, and drew his sword, but before I could touch his blade with mine, he'd thrown it from him and fallen to the ground. "Na, he kept saying, "na, I canna." At this, the last of my anger oozed all out of me, and I found myself only sick and sorry and blank and wondering at myself. I would have given the world to take back what I'd said, but a word once spoken, who can recapture it? I minded me of all of Alan's kindness and courage in the past, and how he'd helped and cheered and borne with me in our evil days, and then recalled my own insults, and saw that I had lost forever that doughty friend. At the same time, the sickness that hung upon me seemed to redouble, and the pang in my side was like a sword for sharpness. I thought I must have swooned where I stood. This it was that gave me a thought. No apology could blot out what I'd said. It was needless to think of one. None could cover the offence. But where an apology was vain, a mere cry for help might bring Alan back to my side. I put my pride away from me. "Alan," I said, "if you canna help me, I must just die here." He started up, sitting, and looked at me. "It's true," said I. "I'm by with it. Oh, let me get into the biel of a house. I can die there easier." I had no need to pretend whether I chose or not. I spoke in a weeping voice that would have melted a heart of stone. "Can you walk?" asked Alan. "No," said I, "not without help. This last hour my legs have been fainting under me. I have a stitch in my side like a red-hot iron. I canna breathe right. If I die, you'll can forgive me, Alan? In my heart, I liked you fine, even when I was the angriest." Again he came near sobbing. "Davy," he said, "I'm not a right man at all. I've neither sense nor kindness. I couldn't remember you when you were a bairn, just a bairn. I couldn't see you were dying on your feet. Davy, you'll have to try and forgive me." "Oh man, let's say no more about it," said I. "We're neither one of us to mend the other, that's the truth. We must just bear and forbear, man Alan. Oh, but my stitch is sore. Is there a house?" "I'll find a house, dear David," he said stoutly. "We'll follow down the burn, where there's bound to be houses. My poor man, will you no be better on my back?" "Oh, Alan," says I, "and me a good 12 inches taller." "You no such thing," cried Alan with a start. "There may be a trifling matter of an inch or two. I'm not saying I'm just exactly what you would call a tall man, whatever. And I dare say," he added, his voice tailing off in a laughable manner, "now, when I come to think of it, I dare say you'll be just about right. It'll be a foot or near hand, or maybe even mair." It was sweet and laughable to hear Alan eat his words up in the fear of some fresh quarrel. I could have laughed, had not my stitch caught me so hard. But if I had laughed, I think I must have wept too. "Alan," cried I, "what makes you so good to me? What makes you care for such a thankless fellow?" "'Deed, and I don't know," said Alan, "for just precisely what I thought I liked about you was that we never quarrelled. And now I like you better."
Very good. Follow down the burn to the house. It works. It's good, isn't it? We're in exactly the right spot.